Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about how we can use the lens of race, ethnicity, and cultural identification to better understand Langston Hughes' poem, Theme for English B. This lens helps us see how Hughes' identity shapes his experience and how he expresses it through poetry. First we'll cover the background of Langston Hughes and give some perspective on what his poetic style actually is. So Langston Hughes was born in Joplin, Missouri in 1902. He became a leading poet of the Harlem Renaissance, a time when black art, music, and literature were going in the 20s and 30s. Hughes often wrote about black identity and culture, showing both the struggles and pride of African American life. He was known for blending jazz and blues rhythms into his poetry, which made his work feel musical and connected to everyday experiences. Beyond poetry, Hughes also wrote plays, essays, and short stories. He used his writing to promote racial pride and equality. One of his poems, Theme for English B, was written in 1949. The poem is about a black student who is given an assignment to write a page about himself. It explores the challenge of being truthful in writing while dealing with racial differences. Hughes uses a conversational tone which makes the poem feel personal and relatable. The poem also shows how identity is shaped not only by personal choices, but also by society's views and expectations. Next, let's talk about what this lens means. Using the lens of race, ethnicity, and cultural identification means looking closely at how a person's background, like their race or culture, influences their life and how they see the world. It helps us explore their unique perspectives and can also reveal social problems like inequality or discrimination. This This way of looking lets us understand things more deeply than just on the surface. In Theme for English B, Langston Hughes explores identity and self-expression. He shows how a person's identity is shaped by their experience, background, and environment. The speaker reflects on who is as both a student and a black man in America. Writing the assignment becomes a way for him to express his own truth and perspective. The poem also looks at race and cultural differences. Hughes talks about how race affects life experiences, school, and relationships. He points out the difference between the black student and his white instructor, while still showing the reality of racism. The poem helps us see how our cultural backgrounds influence the way we view the world. Finally, Hughes highlights connection and common humanity. Even though people are different, the speaker recognizes that everyone shares human experiences. The poem shows that people of all races influence each other in small ways, and that understanding and learning can happen across cultural lines. Langston Hughes shows how race shapes the speaker's experience in Theme for English B. The narrator is the only black student in his college class, which affects how he feels and interacts with others. The poem also shows the identity is complex. The speaker sees himself as both a unique individual and part of a larger community. This means that identity is more than just race, but race still plays an important role. Hughes also talks about mutual influence. Even though the speaker is black and his instructor is white, they still influence each other, which challenges stereotypes and helps create understanding. The poem points out that race affects how people might see him, but his humanity and individuality go beyond those labels. Finally, Hughes blends personal and cultural identity by showing the speaker's individuality while also connecting him to the larger African American cultural experience. So here's something to think about. How do our race and cultural background shape the way we see ourselves and how others see us? Can we maintain our individuality while also being part of a larger community? So we've established that the speaker in Theme for English B identifies as a black young man in a mostly white environment, which affects how he experiences the world and interacts with others. His perspective is also shaped by both his personal life and his African American culture, giving him a unique point of view. Hughes points out the differences between the speaker's experiences and those of his white teacher, but the poem also shows how they share common human feelings despite cultural gaps. This helps highlight that cultural influence not only how we see others, but also how we understand and connect with other people. In Theme for English B, Hughes shows how race affects opportunities and treatment in both education and society. The speaker is the only black student in a mostly white environment, which highlights racial isolation and the challenges he faces on a day-to-day basis. The poem also reflects inequality by showing how others might judge him or assume things about his abilities just because of his race. Hughes points out that society's rules and expectations shape how black people live, work, and learn. Even with these challenges, the poem emphasizes shared humanity. Hughes shows that despite inequality, it's still possible to connect with others and understand one another across racial lines. And ponder this: how does our environment and culture and the way others see us shape who we are? Can we fully express our true identity even when society expects us to fit certain roles? In conclusion, using the lens of race, ethnicity, and cultural identification helps us better understand Hughes's message and Theme for English B. It shows us how his race and culture shape his identity and experience. The poem reminds us to look beyond differences and recognize our shared humanity, which is still very important today.